I mean, far from the worst possible news, this is a scenario where, in theory, it shouldn't cost Lindor, time into the season. It does sound like, with the worst case being potential surgery, that would still have him ready for opening day. We know Lindor, total gamer. He's played through injuries throughout his Mets career. And most of the time, besides the back injury, because he could barely move sometimes, you wouldn't even know it until the season was over. But, understandably, with the stress reaction in that left hamate bone, I think the bigger concern for me is, Joe, because we've had these conversations over the years, is when do you start feeling like yourself again? Not necessarily when you are absolutely back on the field. We know Lindor, once again, a guy that plays through pain. You never really hear about it. But nevertheless, this is a huge piece of not only the Mets team, but plays the premium spot of shortstop. So, what is your concern level on this one, short and long term?
Short term, I mean, it's concerning that I think opening day, the Mets were very firm. Like David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza even spoke afterwards as well. And they were very firm that they think opening day is going to be just fine for Lindor, essentially. And I do agree with on what David Stearns said with hamate bones. It's generally like a very straightforward recovery time. We had it with Francisco Alvarez
Right.
last year. I believe it was basically essentially 6 weeks. So it's not like a hamstring or something where there's varying return to play timeframes, but there's a difference between returning to play and, as you point out, Connor, returning fully to form. And history with hamate bone injuries, one, they almost always are accompanied with surgery. So I know they're saying surgery is possible. He's getting evaluated. More often than not, these do result in surgery. So we'll see over the next couple of days if that's what is going to happen with Lindor. But the biggest thing is power takes some time to come back. When you get this injury, it's not necessarily like it's not like it wipes him out for the whole season, but it's just going to be maybe a slow roll when he comes back in the power department. I feel good that it's his left just because it's not going to impact any throwing with his hand or his wrist. So I think
Right.
that's a positive to take of it. But look, this is going to be pushing up against opening day. I know that there's the discussion from David Stearns was he'll be back in big league spring training games in time to get ready to be ready for opening day. I'll kind of believe that when I see it, but if it's not opening day, it should be so shortly after, like a week. Like we're not talking something that I would expect would be lingering late into April or certainly anything near that.
Interestingly enough, the Mets traded away both of their young shortstop prospects, and now Jet Williams was more viewed as a guy that could play multiple spots or might even play second long term. Luis Angel Acuna, we know he was known for his glove. How do you view the depth on this team in case this is a scenario where Lindor, who will beg not to ever sit, needs some more rest, or potentially it lingers a little longer than you could expect? Like, we don't actually talk about the Mets' depth at shortstop anymore, not only with the trades that they made, but the fact that Lindor's a guy that, like I said, just doesn't really miss a lot of time. He's been a bit of an Iron Man, holding down shortstop for this team for a while now.
I would say it's not optimal. And Joel Sherman pushed Stearns on this. He was like, "Hey, who are your options?" And he was just like, "We're still optimistic that Lindor is going to be there for opening day." He's like, "Well, if he's not, who are your options?" And like the number one name would be Vidal Brujan, who they picked up for, on I think it was a cash trade. He was designated for assignment. He's on the 40-man roster as an option. Ronnie Mauricio obviously has some history at
Right.
shortstop, so he could be a short-term option. And then at that point, you're going into the non-roster invites. Someone like Christian Arroyo has prior big league experience. The real answer here, Connor, is if Lindor is to miss actual time, they don't have a strong in-house answer, and it may be something that that person might not be in the organization right now.
Yeah.
Stearns mentioned that if they get closer to opening day, they may have to evaluate things. And there's going to be teams that may not have a spot for a certain middle infielder, and you could look at that person as like a band-aid until Lindor is back. One thing that I would really prefer not to see, and I know it's going to be a discussion point, I don't want them playing Bo Bichette at shortstop at all. I
No.
want them. they signed Bo Bichette to be a third baseman. So I want Bo to be fully focused on third base. And if the Mets have to make up a week of games of Lindor at the end of March into early April at shortstop, in the scheme of things, you're going to survive. You're going to get through that. And it's going to seem very dramatic because as fans, we sat through a winter. We'll be sitting through 6 weeks of spring training, and opening day seems like the biggest day in the world. And in some ways it is, but in the scheme of the season, like, you'll be okay if Lindor's not their opening day. But as someone who goes to opening day every year, I would much rather see Lindor playing shortstop.
Yeah, it just kind of is one of those reminders where it's like, oh, what would the Mets do without Lindor? It doesn't really hit you until these scenarios literally arrive.